All right, so now we have 2.3, addition of rational numbers. I'm going to start by showing you addition using a number line. So when you're looking at addition with a number line, you're going to take the first number and that's where you're going to start. So I'm going to start here at 3. I'm going to add -5. That means I'm going to go in the negative direction 5 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which puts me right here, and my answer is -2. If I go to another problem like that, I start with -4, which would be right here, and I'm going to take away 3. So I'm moving in the negative direction 3 times. 1, 2, 3, which puts me right here at -7. Now, showing you that I very rarely would use the number line. It's to show you how it kind of works. If I'm doing a problem, I'm never going to really use that number line to help me. So it's up to you during the assignment. If it asks you to use the number line, you can choose. You do not have to use the number line. Here's what you need to know to make that easier so that you don't have to use the number line. If it's a positive and a positive, so you're adding two positives, of course you're going to get a positive. If you have a negative and a negative, then you're going to keep the negative. If you have a negative and a positive, then you're going to subtract the two numbers and keep the sign of the larger number, the bigger number. And I'm going to show you all that here in just one second. So let's look at a couple of these problems. Looking here, I have a negative and a negative, so that means my answer is going to stay negative. I'm going to add them together. 13 and 2 would be 15. Okay. One's positive, one's negative. I want to subtract the two numbers. So 25 minus 12 gives me 13. And then you ask yourself, which number's bigger? Not -12, 12 and 25. So you're looking only at their absolute values. Well, 25 is larger than 12. And since 25 is positive, 13 is positive. And that's where we say here, subtract them and keep the sign of the bigger number. 25 is larger than 12. So it will be positive. Okay. Here we go. One's positive and one's negative, so I'm going to subtract them. 21 minus 14 would be 7. And now, which is larger number, the 21 or the 14? Not -21. 21 and 14. Well, 21 is bigger than 14. 21 is a negative number. My answer has to be a negative number. Okay, now as soon as you see fractions, I know that makes it more difficult, but that doesn't mean it's not doable. You need to find the common denominator. So the common denominator between 8 and 4 would be 8. So when we're looking at this, the first fraction staying the same. We want an 8 on the bottom. So here I have to multiply by 2. Remember from before in chapter 1 we were talking about we can multiply by the number 1 anytime we want. Well, here's where you see it in a problem. The number 1 is 2 over 2, so I can multiply that. And here I get 1 time, or -1 times 2 is -2. 4 times 2 is 8. Now it's pretty basic. Remember, when you're adding fractions, you keep the bottom, the denominator, the same. Now you just look at the 5 and the 2. They're both negative. I know that means my answer is negative. I add them together. 5 plus 2 is 7. All right, so now we're looking at the additive inverse. For each number a, the additive inverse is -a. So that if you were to add the two together, a plus -a, you would get a 0. This is called the opposite. So that -a is the opposite. So let's actually see that and how it works. We're just going to look for the additive inverse in these problems. So it's the opposite. So if I have a -5, I'm looking at a +5. You'll notice I don't use an equal sign. I'm not looking for something that's equal to -5. I'm looking for its additive inverse. So the opposite of -5 is 5. The opposite of 34 would be -34. The opposite of -5 over 4 would be 5 over 4. The opposite of 2.96 would be -2.96. You're looking at the opposite in this situation.